If you've ever wondered what heartbreak feels like, imagine being 9 months pregnant, knowing your baby could arrive at any moment, feeling scared, feeling vulnerable, and then watching your husband pack his suitcase, not for the hospital, but for a vacation with his parents. That's exactly what happened to me. And the worst part? He didn't think he was doing anything wrong, but what happened after he left changed our marriage forever. Hello, everyone. Before I tell you my story, please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy emotional family dramas, shocking betrayals, and powerful endings. My name is Sophia Bennett. I'm 29 years old. And this is the story of how I gave birth to my first child without my husband beside me. When I married Ethan Bennett, I thought I had found my forever person. He was kind, funny, hardworking, and he genuinely loved me. At least, that's what I believed. But there was one problem I ignored for years. Ethan never knew how to say no to his parents, especially his mother. Linda wasn't cruel, at least not openly. But she had a way of making everything about herself. And Ethan always gave in, always. If Linda wanted us to cancel our anniversary dinner, we canceled. If she wanted us to spend Christmas with her family instead of mine, we did. If she needed help with something unimportant, everything else suddenly became less important, including me. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. Marriage required compromise, right? But looking back, I realized I wasn't compromising. I was constantly sacrificing, and Ethan never noticed. After 3 years of marriage, we finally found out I was pregnant. We were overjoyed, especially me, because this baby wasn't just our first child, she was our miracle. After 2 heartbreaking miscarriages, I honestly thought becoming a mother might never happen. So when I heard our daughter's heartbeat for the first time, I cried. And Ethan cried too. For a while, everything felt perfect. He attended appointments, read parenting books, talked to my belly every night. And for the first time in years, I felt like we were truly a team. But then, Linda got involved. From the moment she learned I was pregnant, she acted as though she was the third parent. She criticized my diet, my doctor, my nursery choices, even my baby names. Nothing I did seemed good enough. And whenever I complained to Ethan, his answer was always the same. She means well, Sophia. Those 4 words became my nightmare because somehow everyone's feelings mattered. Except mine. As my due date approached, I became anxious. My doctor warned me that because of complications earlier in pregnancy, labor could begin at any time, which meant Ethan needed to stay close. And honestly, he promised he would. One night, while rubbing my swollen feet, he smiled and said, "Don't worry. I wouldn't miss our daughter's birth for anything." I believed him, because why wouldn't I? He was my husband. Then came the phone call. 3 days before my due date, Linda called Ethan. Apparently, she and his father had planned a short weekend trip to a mountain resort, a trip they had postponed twice. And now, they wanted Ethan to join them. I laughed when he first told me, because obviously, he would say no, right? But Ethan looked uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. "Mom says this might be Dad's last chance to travel before his knee surgery." I stared at him. "Okay, so you'll visit them another time," he hesitated. Then he said words I'll never forget. "They're really hoping I'll go." I thought he was joking. I actually laughed. Until I realized he wasn't smiling, my heart started racing. "Ethan, I'm due in 3 days." He nodded. "I know. Our daughter could come at any moment." "I know." "Then why are we even discussing this?" He sighed. And then came the sentence that shattered me. "Mom says first babies are usually late." Mom says, not the doctor, not medical science. Mom? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My doctor had specifically warned us to be prepared. My hospital bag was already packed. The baby's room was finished. Everything was ready, except apparently, my husband. That evening, I called my best friend Rachel, and when I told her what was happening, she became furious. "Tell me he's joking." I quietly answered, "I don't think he is." Rachel was silent for several seconds. Then she said, "Sophia, if he leaves, you'll never forget it." At the time, I thought she was exaggerating. Later, I realized she was absolutely right. The next morning, Ethan brought it up again. "Sophia, it's only 2 days. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen." Those words made me want to scream. Because childbirth doesn't follow schedules. Babies don't wait for convenience. And fear doesn't disappear because someone says relax. For the first time in our marriage, I begged him. Actually begged. "Ethan, please. I'm scared. I need you here." He hugged me, kissed my forehead, and said, "You're worrying too much." Those words hurt more than anything, because I wasn't asking for jewelry, or gifts, or vacations. I was asking for my husband. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of a suitcase zipper. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. But when I walked into the bedroom, there he was, packing. My hands started shaking. "Ethan, you're really going," he avoided my eyes. "It's only 48 hours. Then Linda called from outside. They had already arrived. They were waiting, as though my husband's priority had already been decided. I stood there with tears in my eyes. 9 months pregnant. One day away from my due date. And suddenly, I had never felt more alone. Before leaving, Ethan kissed my forehead, smiled, and said words that would haunt him later. "I'll be back before anything happens." Then he walked out the front door, and I watched my husband choose his parents over me. What he didn't know was that less than 6 hours later, everything would change. For almost an hour after Ethan left, I sat alone on the couch, trying to convince myself everything would be okay. Maybe he was right. Maybe first babies really were late. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe nothing would happen. But deep inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, not physically, emotionally. Because no matter how much I tried to stay calm, I couldn't stop thinking about the empty passenger seat beside me, the one that should have belonged to my husband. Around 4 in the afternoon, I started feeling uncomfortable. At first, I ignored it. Pregnancy had been uncomfortable for months. But then another pain came, stronger, and then another. I slowly looked at the clock. 20 minutes later, another contraction. My heart started pounding. No, not today, please not today. I grabbed my phone and called Ethan immediately. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. Again, nothing. I started crying. Not because I was in pain, because I was terrified. I had imagined this day 1,000 times. Ethan holding my hand, us driving to the hospital together, seeing our daughter for the first time as a family, but suddenly, none of those dreams looked real anymore. I called Rachel. The moment she answered, she heard the fear in my voice. "I think it's happening." Rachel didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way." Within 20 minutes, she was at my house. No makeup, no questions, no complaints. She simply hugged me and said, "You're not alone." And honestly, those 4 words meant more to me than anything Ethan had said in weeks. By the time we reached the hospital, the contractions were stronger. The nurses immediately admitted me, and one of them smiled. "Where's Dad?" I froze. Rachel froze. And suddenly, I felt embarrassed. Not because Ethan wasn't there, because I didn't know how to explain why. I quietly answered, "He's away." The nurse smiled politely, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. Then my doctor arrived, and after examining me, she looked concerned. "Sophia, labor is progressing faster than expected. We may not have much time." My hands started shaking. This was really happening. Our daughter was coming, and Ethan wasn't here. Rachel squeezed my hand. "You need to call him." I nodded, and called again. No answer, again. No answer. Finally, after the 6th call, he answered. But instead of concern, I heard laughter in the background. Music, voices, his mother talking. They were having dinner. My heart shattered. "Ethan, I'm in labor." Silence, complete silence. Then he laughed nervously. "No, you're kidding. I'm serious." Another silence. Then I heard Linda's voice in the background. "What's going on?" And Ethan answered, "Sophia says she's in labor, says. Not is, says." As though I might be exaggerating. Then I heard something that made Rachel's face turn red with anger. Linda actually said, "Tell her first babies take forever." Rachel nearly grabbed the phone from my hand, but before she could, my doctor spoke loudly enough for Ethan to hear. "Sophia, we need to prepare immediately." And suddenly everything changed. Ethan's voice panicked. What? What do you mean immediately?" I started crying. Because now he was scared. Not when I begged him to stay, not when I told him I was afraid, not when I asked for his support, only now. "I'm leaving right now," he shouted. But the mountain resort was 4 hours away. 4 hours! And my doctor quietly whispered, "He won't make it." Those words destroyed me, because suddenly I knew the truth. I was about to become a mother, without my husband. Labor became intense. Hours felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. Rachel stayed beside me through everything. She held my hand, wiped my tears, encouraged me, and when I thought I couldn't do it anymore, she whispered, "Look at me. You're stronger than you think." Meanwhile, my husband was still driving, still too far away, still absent. Then finally, at 11:42 p.m., I heard the most beautiful sound of my life, my daughter's first cry. and instantly, everything else disappeared. The pain, the fear, the loneliness, all of it. The nurse placed her in my arms and I started sobbing because she was perfect. Tiny fingers, tiny nose, beautiful dark hair, she was everything. And in that moment, I made a silent promise. I'll never let you feel abandoned. 20 minutes later, Ethan burst into the hospital room, breathing heavily, looking terrified. But he was too late. He stopped when he saw me holding our daughter, and then he saw Rachel sitting beside me. And finally, he understood. He had missed it. He had actually missed the birth of his first child. Tears immediately filled his eyes. Sophia, I'm sorry. But honestly, I couldn't answer because some moments only happen once, and he had chosen to spend that moment somewhere else. Then something unexpected happened. His phone rang. It was Linda. And when Ethan answered, I heard her ask, "Is everything okay?" "Everything okay?" For the first time in our marriage, Ethan exploded. "No, Mom. I missed my daughter's birth. I should have stayed with my wife." The entire room became silent. Even I looked at him in shock. Because for the first time in his life, he had finally stopped protecting everyone else. But what happened the next morning would change our marriage forever. The morning after our daughter was born, I woke up before everyone else. The hospital room was quiet. My baby girl was sleeping peacefully beside me, and for the first time in 24 hours, everything felt calm. Then I looked across the room. Ethan was asleep in the chair, still wearing yesterday's clothes. His face looked exhausted. And honestly, he looked broken. But despite seeing his pain, I couldn't forget mine. Because while he had arrived eventually, he hadn't been there when I needed him most. And that truth hurt. When Ethan woke up, he immediately walked toward our daughter. Tears filled his eyes. He gently touched her tiny hand and quietly whispered, "I'm so sorry." Not to me, to her. Then he looked at me. "Sophia, I don't know how to fix this, honestly, neither did I, because some mistakes aren't about forgiveness. They're about trust." And trust had been damaged. For the next 2 days, Ethan barely left the hospital room. He changed diapers, brought me food, stayed awake at night, and held our daughter every chance he got. But no matter how hard he tried, something between us felt different. Because love wasn't the problem. Trust was. Just before we were discharged, Ethan surprised me. He handed me his phone. Read this. Confused, I looked at the screen. It was a text message conversation with his mother, and what I read shocked me. Linda had sent, "I hope Sophia isn't blaming us." Then another message, "You couldn't disappoint your father. We needed you." But Ethan's reply stopped me cold. For the first time in our marriage, he had finally chosen us. He wrote, "No, Mom. Sophia needed me. My daughter needed me. And I failed both of them." Then another message. "From now on, my wife and child come first." I looked up at him. And honestly, I almost cried. Because after years of saying, "Mom means well," he was finally saying, "My family comes first." But the biggest surprise came later that afternoon. Linda arrived at the hospital. Alone. No father-in-law, no dramatic entrance, no excuses, just Linda. She looked nervous. Which honestly, I had never seen before. She slowly approached my bed. Then tears appeared in her eyes. "Sophia? I'm sorry." I blinked. Because in all the years I'd known her, I had never heard those words. She looked at Ethan, then at the baby, and quietly said, "I forgot that he's a husband before he's a son." The room became silent. Even Ethan looked shocked. Linda wiped her eyes. I thought I was helping. But I made everything about me. Then she looked directly at me. "And because of that, you faced the most important moment of your life alone." For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then she whispered, "You deserved better." And honestly, those 4 words healed something inside me. Not completely, but enough. A month later, life slowly returned to normal. Sleepless nights, diapers, feedings, new parent exhaustion. But something had changed. Ethan had changed. Whenever Linda called unexpectedly, he no longer dropped everything. Whenever plans interfered with our family, he said no. Not rudely, not angrily, just firmly. And honestly, watching him set boundaries was like watching a completely different man. Then 6 months later, something happened that made me smile. Linda called Ethan. And before she even finished speaking, she said, "Only if Sophia agrees." I nearly dropped my coffee. Because for the first time, she wasn't treating me like an outsider, she was treating me like family. One evening, while rocking our daughter to sleep, Ethan quietly said, "Missing her birth will be the greatest regret of my life." I looked at him and asked, "Then why did you leave?" He lowered his head and answered honestly, "Because I spent my whole life trying to be a good son." Then tears filled his eyes, "But I forgot how to be a good husband." That answer broke my heart, because I knew he meant it. I reached for his hand and quietly said, "Then learn." Because marriage isn't about never making mistakes. It's about learning from them. And Ethan had finally started learning. Today, our daughter Emma is 3 years old. She's happy, healthy, and completely obsessed with her father. Every night she runs into his arms the moment he gets home. And every time I watch them together, I remember that painful day. Not with anger anymore, but with gratitude. Because sometimes, the worst mistake of someone's life becomes the wake-up call they desperately needed. People often ask me, "Did you forgive him?" Yes. But forgiveness didn't happen overnight. It happened through actions, consistency, growth, and effort. Because apologies are important. But changed behavior is what truly heals relationships. And as for Ethan, he never missed another important moment. Not birthdays, not doctor appointments, not school events. Nothing. Because the day he missed his daughter's birth, he learned something he should have learned years earlier. Being a good son is important, but being a good husband and father is priceless.